Hi, I'm Stu Kagan. Welcome to Born Scrappy, the podcast for scrap metal exporters and traders. Join me in conversation with some of the most experienced traders and operators that have helped shape this incredible industry. In today's episode, I'm joined by Matt Kripke. Matt has been the owner-operator of the metal recycling company Kripke Enterprises for almost 30 years now. Not only does Kripke Enterprises run their own metal recycling facilities, they also have a coil sales division in Tennessee, as well as a trading office based out of Florida. Matt doesn't do this alone. He's built an incredible management team around him. We get a bit into that and culture, along with the usual trading stuff in this episode. There is so much gold in the episode for all metal recyclers. I can't wait for you to listen. So without further ado, let's hear from Matt. But first, intro. Hey Matt, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you, Matt. Awesome to have you on Born Scrappy today. We've been chatting for a little while about it, so glad we get to get it done.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Matt, tell us a little bit about Kripke Enterprises and your journey in the company.
Sure. So Kripke Enterprises this year is celebrating our 30-year anniversary in business. My mom and dad started the company, and it was them and one. Back then, it was a secretary, not even an administrative assistant. Today, that same person would be called an administrative assistant. And I joined the company in 1994, mainly not because it was a dream or I wanted to. I know even though I was born into the scrap business, born scrappy, my dad had asked me years before if I ever wanted to come into the business with him. And I told him, no interest. I was doing some other things and he got sick and I pinch hit and sat at his desk for 30 days while he was in a hospital recovering without knowing what I was doing. And I absolutely fell in love with the business through what we call trial by fire. And then we started growing the company together. It took a little while for me to fully buy in, but we started building the company together. And today we have about 65 employees. We have a location. Our main location is in Toledo, Ohio, which is in the kind of the center part of the United States, a little bit further east than the middle. And we specialize in aluminum trading mainly throughout North America, but we have expanded our international footprint through our Vice President of International Trading, Todd Engel, has been very active in bringing on some new partners overseas. We also have a coil division that we buy and sell aluminum coil, mainly a little bit of steel coil, but this is into the B&C market, building and construction. And we have a small trading office down in Florida.
That's awesome. And have you got a lot of family in the business at the moment, or is it just you?
So I'm currently the CEO. The president of the company is my first cousin, Chad Kripke. My dad is still on the payroll as our founder. And once a month, he helps us price the monthly price contracts in our operating system. He goes in and changes the prices for us, which we appreciate. And that's it. My siblings are not in the market or in the business, and it's just mainly me and my first cousin.
And Matt, does your dad help you do it because he doesn't trust you could do it yet, or is it there because
he says one day, son, one day I'm going to turn this over to you. You can do it. He, I think he loves still having. He's going to be 80 next month, and he loves having he doesn't want any major responsibility, but I think he loves having a little bit of a finger on the pulse of something that he helped build. He started this when he was 49, and he doesn't want to say goodbye to his baby yet.
I tell you, the pricing side of it is something I would never let go, no matter how old or how big the company came. It's something that I was always passionate about on the trading side and working out margins and making sure that you're buying at the right price and selling at the right prices. So I get where he comes from.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't your first rodeo either, though. You've done a few podcasts. I have done a bit of stalking, and I've seen you've done some podcasts. You've also got Andy Golding at Kripke, who hosts Toledo Works. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Toledo is in Spain. Toledo is in Ohio. Right.
Sometimes you wouldn't mind going to Toledo, just maybe as
Right.
like
I've never
off
been there,
season.
but I'm sure it's just as pretty as Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, you guys do the tapas as well as
Uh-huh.
them too. And just before we go into more specific trading questions, I'd love to understand, you guys do a lot of charity work that I see, and it's all over social media. And I absolutely love that aspect of what you guys do. But also, it's something that seems to becoming more prevalent in our industry. We talk a lot about fixing the way we are seen in the industry. We talk about changing the term scrap metal to metal recycling, all these sort of things. But doing that amount of charity is also a really good thing. So talk us through it. But I also want you to touch on the Speedway, where I heard if you're not first, you're last. But then tell us how you ended up in that race.
Yeah.
I
Well,
wasn't put up to this by the Padnos guys.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, the Padnos driver, I think, finished ahead of ours. It was a little bit controversial as to who finished
Wow.
first, but I'll be the bigger person and I'll let them have the win. So, one of our vendors, we use there's a alloy gun called SciAps, and
Yeah.
we really like their technology. They're a 10-year-old company. With what we do, some of the other guns are really good at what I would call stainless steel, coppers, things like that. We have found that this one in particular for us is great for aluminum. It can dial down and tell the difference between 60-22 and 60-63, which a lot of guns weren't
Yeah,
quite doing that.
absolutely.
And so we partnered with them a number of years ago and said, hey, we want to buy your guns. And they were smart enough where they said, well, we see your profile and you're out there everywhere. And this was kind of the beginning stages of social media and companies grabbing onto it. And they said, we'd like to cross promote with you. And so we've kind of developed this relationship. And when they were coming to the Michigan International Speedway, which is almost halfway between us and Padnos, they were coming there to race a couple cars, and they said, let's make it something fun, and let's see which car finishes first. So we kind of challenged Padnos, and the great thing is that SciAps agreed to give a matching $1,000 gift to each of the Boys and Girls Clubs in our local community. And we ended up making $1,000 gift to Padnos Boys and Girls Club in their community in Holland, Michigan. And then being the really wonderful people that they are, they made $1,000 gift to our local Boys and Girls Club. The big winner were the Boys and Girls Club.
That's amazing.
Going back to your question about charity, the reality is, of course, we're all in this business because we work for profit. We want to turn a profit. We want to make a buck. That being said, I think a lot of us, what resonates with us is we do want to make the world a better place. And we do want to improve the world. And we can do that through recycling. We can do that through trading and helping companies make a little bit more money than they would have made if they didn't get their material to the highest price. But that is why I think that charity piece resonates so much here. And I will tell you, it's been really great for internal culture. It gives a lot of pride to our employees that they know that not only are they helping the world through what we do for a living, but they're helping the world.
That's such a good point. And I don't think everybody necessarily thinks like that immediately. But it's a whole episode just on itself if we speak about culture. But a really big part of culture is a sense of belonging. And
Mm-hmm.
when your people believe they belong to something that is doing good, and yes, we are doing good in recycling, of course, But when you're going that extra mile, the team seems to come together even more so. So I absolutely love that, and I love what you guys are doing. It's absolutely phenomenal, and a lot of people are trying to do similar things. And the more we push it, I think the better it'll be for our whole industry.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And if anyone is interested in a discussion on culture, I could talk about that all day, 24 hours a day, and would be happy. Welcome your phone call or text or whatever.
Amazing. I'll put your mobile number in the comments on social media.
Perfect. That'd be perfect.
All right, let's go into some trading stuff. So, Matt, we like to learn from through people's journey and the lessons that they've had. Can you think of a trade that you've done for whatever reason was pretty tough for you guys to manage and get through it? And can you tell us what maybe you learned through that?
Sure. The one that comes to mind, and I'll get to why this one comes to mind, is I think this is all the way back in the probably 1996, 1997 area. We entered into a tolling arrangement with a company that there was three partners in this deal. We had agreed that we were going to supply high quality old sheet aluminum. I think the is respect for that is Tain Tabor. So we were gonna supply very high quality. I think it was around 1 million pounds over the course of maybe a 60-day window into a location. That location, we were paying them a fee. They were melting it down, and then they were going to produce coil for us. And we had a third partner that was going to take that coil, paint it, and sell that into the rainwear market. And we delivered the first load, and the first load gets rejected. And they say, we can't take old sheet. We can only take clean painted siding. We can't take this. And we said, well, this third party told us that we could put in old sheet. The pricing doesn't work if we have to go out and buy something. At the time, I think the differential was maybe around 8 or 9 cents a pound higher to get straight loads of that. So we got together, and this was our first deal with these entities. This is the first time that we had done a deal. We were kind of put together by a mutual friend who originally had put the deal together, and then he went out of business. And he said, I want you guys both to succeed, and so I'm just going to give you each other's names. Can you take it over? So we walked into what turned out to be a really bad deal. So we got on a plane and we went to meet up with the parties, and we said, this is a bad deal. No one's going to make money on this. It's a matter of how much are we going to lose? And we worked it out so that we agreed to just get through it and have just complete transparency. It was complete open book. And we, we didn't lose a lot, but, back then we were a 4-year-old company. And so losing anything was painful. And we got through that deal. And the way that we handled it, by being very transparent and honest and just saying, here's what happened, and we want to work this out with you. It led to 20 years of a successful relationship. We built on that tolling arrangement. And then after that 20 years, that company, we made an offer to acquire them and bring them into the Kripke Enterprises fold. And that's our coil sales division now, down in Jackson, Tennessee. And it never would have happened if we had just said, stick it, you're on your own. We didn't sign up for this, but we helped them work it out because they had made a commitment on the coil side.
Yeah, that's awesome, Matt. And I've heard a few times come through in the show. Excuse me. Sometimes you have to be willing to consider a lose-lose, right? We always talk about we need to do a win-win, and it's important to get both parties to win.
Mm-hmm.
We try to convince everybody that we must focus on a win-win because you mustn't bully the other party because that'll be very short-lived. So I always believed in that strategy. And over the last few weeks, it's coming out that actually you must also be willing to lose. And
Yes.
that's the perfect example of be willing to lose. Both parties felt they both lost. They weren't taken advantage of. And therefore, in the long term, there's more business to be done. And who knows? I mean, you end up acquiring the business, right? Who knows where it's going to end up? But it's that mentality of being willing to lose with your partner if there is a situation that you're caught in, that is quite difficult, I think, for a lot of traders, especially in their earlier years, traders to kind of think like that. So yeah, it's a great story. And Matt, talk me through some tough decisions you've had to make as the CEO, or even before that. What tough decisions have you had to make and get through during your journey?
All of us who run any type of organization, whether it's in the recycling business or not, of course you have tough personnel decisions. You probably have tough credit situations, bankruptcies that you have to deal with. Those are all kind of common type situations that you have to get through no matter what business you're in. In our business, sometimes you have to fire a customer because you want to maintain a friendship. And we have some core principles that we run our business through. And one of them is relationships are the backbone of our business. And there's been a couple times where we've just realized, hey, I really like you, but I can't do business with you because every time something goes wrong, it's our fault. And, sure, we'll be the bigger person and we'll take fault and we'll reach into our pocket because we want to make you happy and we want you to leave with a smile on your face. But you're yelling and screaming at our staff for nothing that they did wrong. And we can't have that. And I want to remain friends with you. I want to call you. I want to hear about your family and your kids. And we've had a couple of those people that fortunately have come back and said, hey, I realized what I was doing. I was hot-headed. I was young. And we've been able to reignite and rekindle those friendships and those relationships. But I talk to people in other industries and I describe that and they say, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. But it seems like in our industry, almost everyone in it can say, yeah, this guy, I'm still friends with him. I just can't do business with him.
Yeah, I can relate exactly to that story. You have to, and you actually have to do it a lot of the time for your own people, that they are abusing your people. And it's just, there's so much haggling or discussion that goes on around the grading, the quality. A demolition company comes and delivers to you and you're saying it's 10% soil in the load, and the owner's driving the vehicle or he's phoning up and saying there was never 10%. I saw it get loaded and there's no way there was no soil at all. The stuff was brand new and it was clean, and they'll tell off your staff or your team. And then the problem is when you then call them as a friend, they're like, oh no, I didn't say it like that. And you have to actually just pull the pin. It's a difficult decision. It's a very difficult decision. Not only are they your friend and you might be looking after them on price, so they're now going to get upset with you because you're not willing to take from them, but also they're a customer and you're turning away metal. And, we spend every Monday morning, I would spend with my team, my buying team, and strategically look at where we can source more metal. So then to turn it away is very tough, but you have to do it to support your team. And I think your team grows stronger through that when they see that you're willing to look after them and look out for them.
Right. I agree with that.
I wanted to ask you about collaboration because it's something I speak a lot about in the industry and I have for a long time. I think a perfect example of collaboration in this industry and how we can work together is what you do with Padnos. Putting that on with SciAps, who big shout out to them. I've only heard great things about them as well. That form of collaboration in our industry, you're not fighting each other. You're in different regions. Like do things together. Have you got any other examples of where you might collaborate?
Well, I know that, you have been involved in BIR. We're relatively new to that organization. I think we've only been a member for a few years as we've really embraced international. But for the entire time that we've been in business, we've been a member of the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. And what that has taught us, when I was young and would go to those meetings, I would feel like, oh, gosh, some of these people, I don't want to get to know them. They're a competitor. And as I was there longer, I realized that when people are there, they're not acting on behalf of their company. They're acting on behalf of making the industry better and really, the expression about rising tides. And I find that that taught us that, hey, even people that we compete with, it's worth having a dialogue with them because there are, as you know, as a trader, there's times where you had the foresight, you took a big position at a time where you kind of smelled that someone was going to go out of the market. And that person, you may want to buy some loads from that person. You may want to give them an opportunity to fill your position and vice versa. And we have done a lot of that, a lot of collaboration. And then, I told you that story earlier about the tolling. We've done a lot of tolling where we bring three parties together and find a way to pay a fee to convert the recyclable material into another form, whether it's billet or whether it's RSI, sow, ingot. But most of the time it's into that coil market. And that's an example of bringing some different companies together. So that is a win-win-win where we talked about lose, lose, lose before. Those programs, they only come together when it's good for all parties.
Yeah, I like the idea of tolling. I like the idea of obviously yours is more in the smelting side of things, but even if you go smaller and you just think you might have somebody down the road or in a town nearby who's got a briquetting machine or a baler or whatever, they might have a shredder, whatever. There's nothing stopping you engaging with that party and saying, let's do a tolling arrangement. You can shred for me.
Right.
We can deduct the waste content, and then we can export together, or I export the material to a buyer and I pay you for that tolling fee. So that's a really good example of collaboration, and I think our industry needs to do more of that. On the subject of events and conferences, I think a lot of people, until you've gone to those conferences, and I have a huge amount of respect for the BIR and ISRI. Those are probably the two that I've attended the most. I am attending the BMR in the Middle East in Dubai in October. But those two conferences are incredible to give you a whole new view on the industry. It's exactly what you say. You think you're competing until you go and sit at these events and these conferences and you're sitting next to, somebody from in a town nearby that you think would never want to talk to you because you're both buying alley wheels against each other. But he sits there and he says, let's go for a drink. And you sit and you have a beer together and you find you have so much in common. And then when you go back, all of a sudden you start doing small deals. And in 5 years' time, he's one of your biggest partners that you have.
Right. Yeah, I would say, there's a lot of things that I can point to and say, we've grown our business on the back of blank. ISRI for us has been incredibly valuable. I think that, probably, 30 to 40% of our business has come out of ISRI relationships. And that's a big number. I mean, that's a lot. And you also learn a lot by getting involved. It puts you on the forefront of knowing what is coming down the pipe in terms of regulation or in terms of trends. And it allows you growth opportunities too for you and your people. So I'm a big fan of involvement in trade associations.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of the saying, you get out what you put in. At the level of doing nothing with the events, you're going to get nothing out. But as soon as you start getting, and start by putting your foot in, right? Just get to the first event that you can in Israel, BAR, get to that event, feel it out, and you'll start getting something back. And then slowly, the more you progress into attending those events, being a part of those events, having all those meetings, even sitting on the boards, once you're doing that, you get a huge amount out. So yeah, also a massive fan of those events. And so Matt, tell me, I know your career, you have a long way to go in it, and you'll probably be doing the
Not that long.
pricing. You'll be doing the pricing for the next 40 years at least. So you'll always be doing the pricing.
Right.
So what would you say so far has been a career highlight of yours?
Well, for sure, building a company with my dad is just, it was magical. It was, he's still to this day, if not my best friend, he's certainly one of my best friends. And I know how fortunate I am that we were able to build a company together, and we still love each other. And he taught me some great lessons about being a leader in a company, about caring for your people in a company. But the main takeaway was he taught me, hey, I'm your father first. All these other things, you're my employee second. And then eventually I became his partner. And then eventually I completely bought him and my mom out. The second highlight has been that next phase of transition. We have a management team that is Chad Kripke is the president, Andy Golding is our chief strategy officer, Eric Phillips is our COO, and Scott Chafee is our CFO. And I turned over the company to them about 2 years ago and said, you guys run it. I'm here as an advisor. I'm here as a mentor. And in January of this year, they each bought in a piece of equity, and building that company to the next phase with them it already has been really rewarding to watch them grow, but I'm really excited to see where they take us. They have some pretty ambitious growth plans.
Yeah, that's awesome. That to touch on your first point, working with your dad, I mean, that's a dream for me. My ambition since my first son was born, I told my wife that I want to be the best man at his wedding. Right, that's always been like my goal. I just want to be a great dad. It's so important to me. So working with your dad and still thinking, so highly of him and being so close to him is just massive, because it can put a lot of pressure, right? I mean, I'm sure at times it got tough, but the fact that you've been able to keep it together and still be so close is incredible, man.
Yeah, it sounds to me like, Stu, you're angling to try to get invited to your son's bachelor party. At that point, you might be like a buzzkill for them. You might be a little bit too old. He might not want you there. Don't be offended.
Man, I'm going to put on the bachelor's party.
I've seen some of the pictures that you post. You will definitely be willing to dress the part. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Absolutely. Never afraid of a good dress up, Matt. That's for sure. Tell me, now back onto the trading side of things, what would you say is the best way for a trading team to kind of optimize their strategy? And this can be, whether they are using a broker, whatever they might be doing, whether it's export or even domestic sales. What do you think the right strategy is for them?
So just to clarify your question, you're talking about a metal recycler trading, trading team. How do they? Okay.
So a metal recycler, how best they can sell, right? I call it a trading team, whether it's the owner operator or somebody internally selling the product for them. What can they recommend what their ops team does, or how they can optimize their strategy?
Well, I think that, for years it would frustrate me that I would, as we were growing our company, I'd pick up the phone, I'd be doing cold calling, and I'd say, hey, do you know who we are? No, I'm not familiar with who you are. And I'd describe it, and they'd say, yeah, we don't deal with brokers. We only go direct. And click, they'd hang up the phone. And I would say, don't they understand what we bring to the table? And, they may go direct in one or two directions for that load of, pick an alloy, 5052 or 3003, a common alloy in aluminum. Sure, they have one or two direct relationships, but that broker who just called you might have 7 export options and 10 domestic options, and your guy only has 2. Maybe his 2 are the best, but maybe that broker is going to get you a much better price. We act as the bank of Kripke, so I am, we provide quick money, all those types of things that we do. So one thing I would suggest, I feel like at least in the United States, we're as good, if not better, than anyone. But I think there's a lot of value in dealing with a broker to help you find the best market. Unless you have a trading team of 30 people. If you're a gigantic company, sure, your guys should be able to find all those markets. But if you're an owner operator, you don't want to spend, 15, 20 hours a week on the phone tracking down the best price for your 15 loads you're going to sell. Call broker, put them to work, let them earn that commission.
And the crazy thing is, Matt, those are actually accurate numbers. Those are the kind of hours it takes to go and constantly be getting the best price. Unless, like you say, you've got a team sitting in, maybe in the Far East, and you might have a team sitting in Europe where they are constantly employed just to go and find you the best price. Otherwise, utilize the services of a group of people that are doing that or can get you. What I don't understand there is why would they put the phone down? Matt, for me, it would be absolutely. Can you send me through some prices? Let's discuss. Here's a commodity. Let's see if you can beat the price I'm getting. At least give them the opportunity, because you're just shooting yourself in the foot otherwise.
Right. Yeah. It seems common sense. It seems like that would make sense. And, the other thing is, like, you can't see what I'm looking at right now, but I'm looking out into our trading room, and we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 traders in there when we're at full staff and people aren't on vacation. We have 8 traders that they're all sharing information with each other. That's just here in Toledo. We've got a guy in Baltimore. We've got 2 guys in Florida. We have our coil team in Tennessee. And so that information, through osmosis and through sharing of information, a group like ours or another trading group, they're going to help short circuit the learning curve for you and get you the best price a lot quicker and provide a lot of services that you might not want to do yourself.
I guess, having some time now quickly to think about it, why would an owner operator put down the phone on you? Maybe because there's a lot of, what some people term joker brokers, where people just randomly phone you from around the world and say that they have a cousin who works in a foundry, therefore he can get you the best aluminium prices, and that becomes a waste of time.
What's his name? I'll call him.
Yeah, exactly. And then you say, it's 15 to 20 hours to get the best price. So owner operators don't have that amount of time. So they're spending 5 hours to 10 hours trying to get the best prices. So they don't even have the time to take your call or to give you the time of day. That's where, because I've got to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? They're not sabotaging their company. They're not aware that you have the best price, and they're just saying no because they don't like Matt's voice. They are doing it for a reason. And I think it's it's a catch-22. It's the whole issue of, well, they don't have time. Where's the time need to come from that now they go and sit with you? You're going to ask for pictures. You're going to want to then find out more information, and they're just going to stick to who they're dealing with, even if it is going to cost them money.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sad problem, but it is an actual real problem. Having been an owner operator for a very long time, it's a real problem.
Yes.
Yeah. And when we're looking for new buyers, so when owner operators are looking for new buyers, so say they're willing to engage with you, what should they be looking out for? What is a good way to do some sort of know your client or
well, first off, I think it's very easy to run before you walk. you should always walk before you run. And I know that a lot of times someone calls you and they say, oh, I'll give you this price for a 10 load deal. If they're reputable, they're going to be okay if you want to do 1 or 2 loads to get started so they can prove themselves. So they can show you that they sent in the right kind of equipment, that they picked it up on time when they said they would, and that the money, most importantly, shows up when it's supposed to. You don't need to jump into bed with someone and jump into a 10 load deal. We have learned the hard way, as probably everyone in this industry has, where you get all excited and you get all revved up, and then you realize, boy, I bit off more than I could chew. This person is going to be difficult to deal with. And you don't want to learn that when you have, 15, 20 loads to ship. You'd rather learn that when you only have 1 or 2 to ship.
Yeah.
So that's one. The second thing is we're a big fan of credit insurance. And we realistically, I'm not sure, we're probably big enough that we do a lot of self-insuring now. We don't insure 100%, but we insure the majority of our receivables. And it's like having you have your internal credit department and then you have an external credit department. So that proves worthwhile, especially in international trade when, it's in your own country, you probably know most of the players. When it comes to international, unless you're heavily involved in the BIR, you probably don't know most of the people that you're going to be trying to transact business with.
That takes me to the previous point as well, which is vetting is really difficult in this industry. If you're not jumping on a plane to go and visit the guy and actually see his whole operation, it's really a few phone calls and an email. And nowadays it's just a whole lot of WhatsApp messages. You try and find him on LinkedIn. But there's no review system. You don't know. It's very difficult to reach out to somebody down the road and say, hey, do you know so-and-so in X country? And that makes it very, very difficult. And like you say, you've got to start slowly. And starting slowly can also be frustrating for an owner operator. You've given me a great price. I have 10 containers sitting here right now of Elmo electric motors, and they're ready to go. I'm just going to give them all to you at their best price. And then you'll get burnt. I think 50, maybe more % times you'll get burnt on a big deal like that where you're jumping in because the price is too good to be true, right? And you know the saying. So start slowly, but that takes time and frustrating.
And the hard part, we have a trading team. We're not structured that we work on commission. We just decided years ago that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted them to work together and handle each other's accounts when they were out of the office and not be protective. But when we have these younger guys who we're bringing up in the business, younger traders, and they are judged on an annual basis by the number of loads they do, and they have an opportunity to put together a 10 load deal. And we say to them, whoa, hold up. They're not excited about that either. But every single one of them at one time doesn't heed the advice. They jump in, and then the market goes one way or the other, and we found out who we were dealing with, unfortunately.
Sometimes, and I know you don't want to, but sometimes you have to let them get burnt as a bit of a learning plan for them. It's the best way to learn is when you make a mistake. Obviously, you don't want to lose money doing it, but once you've made that mistake, I have, absolutely, you don't do it again. You're very careful with any new buyer that comes along, and takes me to the same point. When somebody phones you and they're a new buyer, because there's tens, hundreds of thousands of them, it's difficult to give them the time of day, because if you give everybody the time of day, you won't have any time in your day. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one.
You should put that on a t-shirt.
I'll do it. I'll bring it to Isri for everybody.
All right.
So how do you become a preferred supplier? So you handle the brokerage. You've got a few traders running around. They're buying material so you're brokering material from other people's yards. How would you recommend to these owner operators that they can become a preferred supplier?
So So we have one of our senior vice presidents who works out of our Florida office. His name is Marvin Finkelstein. Marvin works very, very hard and diligently on getting the specs updated each year from every consuming mill that we ship to domestically. And then Todd Engel, our VP of International Business, he does that on the international side. And when we do a deal, I remember when I started in this business, my dad was like, we want everything to be blind. We don't want to tell everyone where we're picking up from and where we're delivering to. We don't want anyone to know. We don't do that anymore. When we buy from someone, we tell them exactly where we're taking it. And when we sell to people, oftentimes we tell them who we're sourcing it from because we built those relationships. We trust that they're not going to try to go around us. But the more important thing is that way we can deliver those specs. When we do an order, we give the customer specs at the time. It's set up automatic in our system that the specs come with the order. We review that. And the best way to become a preferred supplier, provide good quality, do what you say you're going to do. And when this is recyclable material, scrap metal, there's going to be a problem from time to time. There just is. Stand up to it. Don't be one of those people who says, like you were saying, there was not 10% soil. Be one of those people who says, I don't know how much soil that was in there. If you say it's 10%, what can we do? Tell me the best way to work this out. And if you're someone who stands up, stands behind the problems and works it out, then people are going to keep coming back to you because they know they can trust you and believe in you.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think that's come through quite a lot in previous episodes as well. Also, give an early heads up is another thing. Let them know beforehand. If you hear that, you saw your yard before it was loaded, you saw it after it was loaded, and you're missing something from that yard, and you're going, hold on, what happened to that, whatever it was, a piece of something that wasn't meant to be? Then you go, they put it in the container. It's worth giving the buyer a heads up, because when he receives it, if you haven't told him about it, immediately he thinks you took a chance.
Right.
And if you've told him, he respects you, and he's not going to push back so hard. He's just going to go and weigh that one piece and go, this is the only piece that was a mistake. If you've taken a chance, he goes, where else have you taken a chance? I'm going to increase that claim a little bit because I might have missed one or two things, other places you took a chance.
Right. Boy, that is a great point.
And I love the idea of not keeping your partners anonymous anymore. I think that's a great decision that you've made. And we're a relationship industry. So to make sure that, as long as you're adding the value, and that's where you've got to be confident in your own service. If you're adding the value, there's no need to keep the others anonymous, because they're still going to come through to you because of the value you bring.
Right.
The insecurity of keeping people anonymous, or for those that I don't believe add much value.
Right. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. The other thing is when you're talking about preferred supplier, where you say, let people know quickly. One of my dad's mantras when he was building this business was, in terms of, as a broker, which is still probably the biggest legacy part of our business, even though we're a processor and, we have these other divisions and we have a small retail operation. His comment was, don't call your suppliers and say, you got a problem, your load's rejected. He said, first off, start with, we have a problem, so that they know you're their partner on it. But secondly, don't call them to inform them of the problem until you at least have two solutions. Yeah. One solution is, we can return the load to you. Here's what it's going to cost. Second solution I found was this place nearby. I found them. We can set it down. They are going to inspect it. They think it'll probably cost around 5 cents a pound for them to go through, dump it out of the boxes, clean it up, repack it, and send it out. And by doing that, it sets you apart. It sounds so easy and simple, but the majority of, and it frustrates me when we get calls from people that we sell to that say, you got a problem, your load's rejected. And that's it. Well, all right, I guess I'll figure it out on my own. But why'd I go through you if I have to do the work? I want to partner on that.
I tell you, I've been doing this for 25 years in scrap, predominantly on the global trading side. And I've been doing this podcast now for a whole bunch of weeks. But let me tell you how important that is as gold for the people listening. The whole idea is I can think to myself who the good people are and good traders, good brokers, good end users over these 25 years based on that exact point. If you phone me and you say to me, there's a problem with the material, you can pick it up at the port, right? I'm leaving it at the port, I'm not collecting it. Or you missed your latest shipping day, whatever it might be. We've unloaded a container and it was full of some dirt, and the other 10 I'm leaving at the port. Immediately, my back is up. Immediately, we are in a fight. We're in an argument here, and I have to try and convince you to do something else. And you've given me no other option, so you're putting me in a horrific position, especially with global trade, right? But then I think straight away to all of the people I still trade with over this time, none of them do that. I would have dropped every single one of those over this 25 years that treat me like that, and kept all the good ones that say to you, hey, mate, I picked up your one container. We noticed there was a bit more dirt than we had specified in the contract, or impurities than we had specified in the contract. Here's the options. You can either try and resell it. Here's the port it's at. You can take it back if you wish, or I'm willing to bring it in, but I'd like an inspector here when I bring it in, so we can have a third party assess, so we can agree, so that we can move forward and you don't think that I'm taking advantage of you. Or I'm willing to do videos, or get on a plane and come and meet me on site, so we do it together and we come up with an answer. Immediately, that is a party that wants to do business with me in the future.
Right.
And that is gold. I think for these podcasts, what I'm looking for is to really help people become better, learn more through other people. So I think if we pick up anything from Born Scrappy, that last one is brilliant. I really appreciate that, man.
I can't wait to tell my wife how brilliant I am. Now, the reality is, it's how brilliant my dad. It's really how brilliant my dad is. That she'll agree with. Yes,
Matt. She's not going to believe you anyway. So you can tell her all you want. Just tell her to listen to the episode. And I've said it, so now it must be true. And I'll be meeting her in New Zealand because you guys are coming through here early next year. So I'll tell her there again when we go.
All right. I'll hold you to
then
it.
It's definitely true.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how it's changed. You took over quite a while ago from your father. He will have seen a different era of it. How has the industry changed in the time that you've been there?
Well, back when I started with my dad, we would write our orders on duplicate paper, and then computers became a big deal, and then and now the way that orders are transacted, of the trades that we put together, I bet you 60-70% are done without actually speaking with someone on the phone. Now, it's very important to still pick up the phone because this is a relationship business and it's important to forge that. Technology has affected every industry, and the way that metal can be sorted today compared to the way that it was, the way it can be identified today compared to the way that it was, the types of metal that are being produced, that has changed drastically. I mean, you think about 10 years ago, no one in our industry had heard of some of these automotive sheet alloys on the aluminum side. And now some of those alloys are, I think some of those alloys are probably worldwide challenging some of the common alloy in terms of, the amount produced. So there's been a lot of changes. The things that are constant, it's still a relationship business. As much as people try to say, it's not as important, it's just as important. You need to have someone near that port for when things go awry. You need to have someone near that consuming mill for when things go wrong. And you still need to have people who you trust.
Agreed. I don't see that ever changing. I think relationships are absolutely key in the industry. You have to know your counterparty really well to
Mm-hmm.
manage the problems in order to keep going forward, but also to have a good relationship, have a good business moving forward and at any stage in the
Yep.
process. So yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about the next 10 years? Where do you see the industry going?
Well, you know, about 95% of what we do is in the aluminum space. That's where our specialty is. So I'll speak to that from an aluminum perspective. I think that, just dumb luck, we were in the right place at the right time years ago. And it's not that we had this vision that aluminum was going to be the metal of the future. And it's not, there certainly is a lot more demand for copper. There's high demand for other things, but the volume of things that are moving to being made out of aluminum, specifically, this automotive world, I don't see that changing. I think the electrification of automobiles is going to lead to more and more demand for
Mm.
aluminum scrap, for aluminum recycling, and then you throw technology on that. I think the intersection going forward of technology, you know, carbon reduction, which means you need to recycle more, and more material being made out of aluminum. I think that, if I'm not in the venture capital space or private equity, but if I was, I would be looking into aluminum recycling and trying to get a foothold in there.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a very positive there's a positive element, or there's a positive direction for the whole industry at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, and yeah, I look forward to being a part of it. And Matt, who talking about looking into this industry, who should people look out for? Who's doing exciting things in the industry at the moment that you're seeing?
I love, through Israel, I have developed some great friends. And usually, I don't go to as many of the board meetings as I used to because of Andy Golding's involvement. He carries our company flag when he goes. Um, but for years, I would go out to dinner with George Adams, who has a company in the States called SA Recycling. And he has taken a company and had the vision to add and buy companies at times when other people didn't want to invest or do it. And he has a long-term view, and he and his team will outwork you. So in terms of what they're doing with technology, I can't speak to that. I can just speak to they'll roll up their sleeves and they'll outwork you. And it's
Mm.
impressive. It's been impressive to see. I love what John Sacco's been doing. Um, you know, I have a good friend out in California named Edward Kangater. He's with a company called Cass, and I think what what I love is the people who put themselves out there and don't try to be anonymous. Don't try to hide the way that maybe 30 years ago we thought was the right way to do it in this industry. Don't draw attention to yourself. You don't want the EPA or whatever they're called internationally to know where you are. Um, I don't think that's. I think we've all decided the right thing is to be a strong community member and let
Mm.
people know exactly where you are and that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, agree. And those are great examples of people to look out for. I think they're all doing really exciting things in the industry, and there's a whole heap more people. But yeah, keep an eye
Hmm.
on those guys and watch what they're doing for sure. Tell us a little bit, very briefly, about Kripke point rewards. I think this could be valuable for a couple of listeners. It was something that my wife, who ran the company with me, was always keen to do something very similar. So give us a little overview of how that works.
Well, I'm going to have to tell I know you're going to try to set up some podcasts when you're at BMR and BIR. This is really Andy Golding's baby. He
Cool.
almost everything creative that comes out of here, and we have some really creative ideas. I don't want to say every creative idea is his, but high percentage. And we have this rewards program where people come and they get points based on how often and how many dollars worth of recyclable material they bring. And we've given away, Yeti coolers and grills and all kinds of things. And it does um, it does add loyalty. I will tell you another thing that we've been doing on the retail side, which has been absolutely incredible. And we didn't know what was going to happen when we rolled it out, is that on Friday afternoons I think it's from 1 to 4:30 in the afternoon, we advertise, hey, it's happy hour. Come by Kripke Enterprises for happy hour. Well, sometimes we don't serve drinks. That's not that kind of happy hour. But sometimes we'll have like hot dogs or a donut or something like that. But what we do is we offer, a premium on prices during whatever we're quoting during the week. People are trained to know that Friday between 1 and 4:30, they can get a premium on their scrap. So I don't think it's on the shred on the steel, but I think on all the non-ferrous, and it is amazing. We're lined up down the street on Friday afternoons, and I have some friends who are electrical contractors who own companies, and he said, "Boy, what you're doing is working. My guys are aware of it because I said, hey, run this over to Kripke, and they said, no, we're going to wait till Friday afternoon because we're going to get an extra 6 cents a pound for all that copper that's going over there." So it
And
works, and it people are holding it, they're bringing it in, it makes it more efficient for us, and it's a differentiator against the other places in town where people could go.
yeah, that's brilliant. How do you manage closing time with queues like that? So we used to have, we close on a
Yeah.
Friday and we had really busy Fridays and we would close at say 5 p.m. But then there'd be a queue out the door and they've arrived at 5 and your staff want to go home at just after 5, but now
Right.
you've got to serve them. What do you do about that? Because Fridays must be manic there.
Yeah, they are. So we get people inside the gate, and then we
Mm,
will close the gate, and we
right.
have an automatic gate, and
Yeah.
it will open as someone leaves, automatically, but
Mm,
someone from the outside won't be able to get in.
yeah, that's great.
And people might have to stick around an extra half hour, 45 minutes to service the customers that we have
Mm,
there, depending on how many we have. But that's a part of culture is, you know, do they complain about it? They really don't. They really are happy to serve people. They're all kind of working together towards the same mission.
mm,
And, we take a lot of pride and we put a lot of money into building this culture here and creating an environment that people want to be here. They want to work here. And, over the last few years where people couldn't hire people, we weren't having that issue. We really have had very little turnover in hourly to salaried employees.
yeah, it's awesome. Um, Matt, it's been an amazing time with you, and really getting some brilliant, tips and tricks, and learning through a lot of your lessons, and I think we will make sure to all tell your wife when we meet her that you're brilliant. But before we go, let's just get to know Matt a little bit better. So,
Okay.
what's your favorite TV series or movie?
My favorite TV series, this is an easy one. You have Amazon over there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
All right. So on Amazon Prime, there's a show called The Boys, and
right.
it's a superhero show where essentially the superheroes are the bad guys. And that show was created by my brother Eric, and he is the showrunner. And
Oh.
I've been on set a few times, and I'm obviously partial to it. But if you've never seen it, it is good. It is R rated. It is hard R rated. And if you don't have a stomach for um, some violence and stuff, don't tune in.
Good to know. I'll definitely go and tune in and go watch a few of those. That's awesome. What's your favorite place to visit?
There's a place in Tennessee called Blackberry Farm, and I'm actually going there next week with my siblings and spouses, and really excited about it. It's going to be great.
What's exciting about it? What is it?
It's a
Relaxing? Is it
it's
adventure?
relaxing. It's right in the foot of what are called the Smoky Mountains. Great hiking trails,
Mm.
spa, yoga, and it
Mm.
has the second largest wine cellar in North America. Um,
You're going
and
to sleep there. Is that your bedroom?
it, that I would love it. And the food there is over the top. It's like every meal is like you're going to the French Laundry or some
Wow.
Michelin-star restaurant. It's
Yeah.
absolutely an incredible place, and it just you go there and immediately just melt.
Well, I'm looking forward to catching up in New Zealand because I think you're going to have some incredible wine and food when you're here. And I have seen your itinerary, and yeah, it's spot on. So you're going to see some beautiful places, drink some beautiful wine, and eat some incredible food. So we'll see if that changes
All right.
after February.
By the way,
And yeah,
on that show, The Boys, Carl Urban is one of the stars, who's a Kiwi, and so
okay,
is a guy named Anthony Starr. I don't know
cool.
if you follow any of the
Oh
Kiwi
man.
actors, but anyway,
I
go ahead.
don't. I don't. I've only been here for 7 years, but I probably know a couple of the South African ones.
Hmm.
And do you have a favorite book?
I tend to alternate back and forth between business books and other books. I love probably because they're not hard reading. I love the Lencioni books. Um, Five Dysfunctions of the Team of a Team is a classic, and Death
Yeah,
by Meeting. I'm a fan of that type of business fiction.
yeah, sure. They are great, and they're great for your team to read as well, so that
Hmm.
you're all on the same page. We used to like to do a bit of a book club once a month. You try and get
Right.
your management team to read a certain book, and you speak about the topics, and yeah, and you mix it up a little bit. So those were great examples of those as well. And do you have a quote that you use?
Yeah, my favorite quote, and we really run our business this way, is it's from Zig Ziglar, and it's people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You got to show people that you care about them, and as long as they know you sincerely do, whether it's your customer or your employees, they'll run through a wall for you.
Yeah, that's awesome, Matt, and that's a great way to finish up. So thank you so much for being on Born Scrappy, Matt. I've loved this, yeah, and really had a lot of fun.
I look forward to either breaking bread or having a drink in New Zealand.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Matt.
All right, thank you.